Stand by. This is Whitetail Brief, tactical deer hunting insights in 20 minutes or less.
What's up, everyone? I'm your host, Aaron Hepler. Let's cut the fluff, hit the tactics, and get you closer to your next whitetail. I'm here with a buddy I've known for a while now, and we get to chatting all the time, Travis Melochick. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too, bud.
So you're out in the woods. You're getting scrapes set up already. I shouldn't say already because it's kind of winding down. We only got like 2.5 months here almost.
That's getting close to that pinch time.
Yeah, for sure. So Travis, we've kind of we did realize like maybe 2-3 years ago that a lot of our areas kind of overlap. One thing I noticed last year is that I had some good areas for a while, and I really did a bad job of the pressure, the hunting pressure deal, right? I had a lot of people move in on areas that I really enjoyed hunting, and I'm kind of like back to square one. You kind of seem to be really good at staying ahead of when the pressure kind of sucks and adjusting to it. So why don't you go ahead and start shedding some light? Where do you start? Where do you start in the postseason, maybe? Like, this is kind of what I'm looking for, but we'll bring it all the way to summer as we go through this.
Okay, so, as soon as my season's over, they always say, as soon as your season ends, the next one begins. And there's truth to that. I, however, am a little bit different than a lot of folks. I do not like scouting when there's snow on the ground. I believe it gives a false representation of where the deer are going to be in the fall. Yeah, all the tracks and all the shit and sign on the ground, that's wonderful and everything that you see in the snow. It's highlighted. It's very easy to see, very easy to spot. But that's, their winter pattern. That's not necessarily where they're going to be in the fall. That's not necessarily going to be where they're rutting and whatnot. That's where they are at that time and place. I prefer to wait it out, and I wait until it's thawed, so there's no snow on the ground, and then I get out and I start putting boots on the ground. I do a lot of e-scouting to cut out a lot of the bullshit. Some of the places I really don't want to zero in on and focus in on, and then I have the spots where I'm interested in. I mark, and then I head out there, get boots on the ground, and what I start looking for is the nasty stuff. You want to get away from pressure. You want to get away from people. It's simple. Make it harder on yourself. If it's harder on yourself and you consider yourself a pretty, hardcore hunter, most average Joes, every Tom, Dick, and Harry ain't going to do what you're going to do, first of all. And then if you're making it harder on yourself, you're really going to put yourself out of that crowd. So what you got to do is just walk further and hunt the nasty stuff, because mature bucks, deer in general, are going to move away from pressure. And the further back you go and the nastier stuff you get in, the stuff that people don't want to deal with, that's where you're going to find deer. That's where you're going to find less pressure, because, those deer might be lower on the mountain the first couple of weeks, but as soon as they get bumped once or twice, those bigger bucks, depending on what you're after, what your goal is. If you're going for an older deer like I am, those deer are going to be outside of human pressure. They're going to feel pressure, and they're going to go to where they're not feeling it anymore. And that's where you got to be. That's where you got to get ahead of everybody else. So if I get into a spot where, it's the spring, I'm scouting in the spring, it's, February, March, and, maybe March, April, and early May, I start getting out away from people. I start finding good spots, meaning I'm finding scrapes that are deep in cover, that are in, on the edge of transition areas, or scrapes that are in deep cover between doe bedding areas. Those positions, that's where I really look for scrapes and rutting activity. If I find that, I slow things down then. And what I mean by I slow things down is I start looking around and I start people scouting. I start looking for people. All right, where's human sign? Where's their trail cameras? Where are their stands? Is there any of that? That's how you start crossing places off the list. If you see, okay, there's a stand here, I don't know if it's a rifle stand. I don't know if it's an archery stand. I mean, do you really want to bet, a good day in the season on that? You don't know how that guy, you don't know if he's entering in the wrong wind or how he's hunting it. Maybe he's hunting it every day. Maybe he's part of that, that pressure that moves them bucks out of the area. So if I see somebody else, stuff in that area, I'm going to blow right past that. So, and as far as getting into the summer, I really don't base a lot of the summer sign on anything because again, it's summer patterns. It's going to change come the fall. So I
Mm-hmm.
really tune in on that early spring, all that early spring information and intel. And I set
Mm-hmm.
my cameras out. I'll set just regular SD card cameras out. Usually, I have cameras out since April. So I'll let them
Yeah.
go throughout the summer and in areas that I'm unfamiliar with. In areas that I already have, established history with, I won't even put cameras out until I'll put cell cameras out in first week of September. Because really, I don't
Mm-hmm.
need antler growth. It's just
Sure.
some people like that. It gets them excited. Hey, different strokes, different folks. I
Mm-hmm.
just put that immediate intel from when they're hardhorn. So I'll wait till the first week of September, and then I'll put out, like I said, my cell cameras. But an area I'm unfamiliar with, I'll put out just regular SD card cameras, and I'll check them right before, like right around the last week of August. And if there's stuff on there that's giving me heart palpitations, yeah, sure. Then I'll go ahead and switch them out with cell cams. But
Yeah.
you can really get to know how the deer travel and use an area by doing that.
Right. So I'm pulling a couple of things from you here because this is kind of like you laid the foundations of the hunting pressure stuff and definitely, stuff that you should be doing to look for pressure. But I know there's like some Melochick like specifics here. So one thing I know about you is when you say the nasty stuff and you don't want to do it, if you don't want to do it, nobody definitely wants to do it because one thing about Travis is he does all these strongman competitions and all this like crazy stuff, So I know if you don't want to do it, it's like it probably really, really sucks. But we're talking like the average Joe here, and not everybody is going to go into that stuff that you want to go to. So when let's just say you're talking to an average person and you're telling them, you're describing to them what nasty stuff you're talking about. Are you going under the brush? Are you going over the water? Like, can you just give them a little bit of a tidbit as to maybe they think they're in nasty stuff, but it's really not that bad when we're
Okay.
talking, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm talking real thick stuff. You're talking about blueberry bush up to your tits. I'm talking about greenbriers that are up to your waist. You're gonna see
Mm-hmm.
deer travel through that stuff. People may not believe it. They may say, "Oh, a big buck ain't gonna travel through that stuff." I've seen them get through some nasty things. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's high stem count. You're gonna be in.
Mm-hmm.
You might not be able to get high in a tree because the higher you go, the less the less shots you're gonna have. So you may only be,
Right.
12, 13 feet off the ground. I think last year the highest I ever went was 15 feet. So I mean,
Right.
for people that are watching, I could show you right here. Look at that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's and when
So go
I'm
on the
saying
YouTubes and see what he's looking at. Yeah.
yeah, and what I'm saying is uh, places like this where the entire mountain, and this too, is generally bedding cover. I mean, it's a lot more difficult. And
Right.
places like this, people don't want to be because not necessarily is it
Mm-hmm.
enjoyable. Is it enjoyable to me? Yeah, the whole process of it is enjoyable to me. It's like playing chess. So
Yeah. Right. I guess, the other thing that I think that keeps people out of it is like, how do you access that stuff in the morning when you're carrying your bow and you got your pack on or whatever? And I think that's like something you're obviously planning when you're going into that kind of thing.
yeah, I got a signal here that says I'm back. So yeah, it is difficult to access, and honestly, a lot of the times you're going to learn that out by trial and error. There is no
Mm-hmm.
direct correlation up here from bedding to feeding because again, the whole mountain is bedding area. Essentially, they can just plop down wherever they want. Of course, there's areas that they favor more than most. But you have oaks mixed in with this stuff, and it's dropping acorns right there. So they only have to get up and move a short distance to start feeding again. And water,
Right.
anytime there's rain around this region, like a million springs pop up out of the ground. So it's not necessarily like they
Yeah.
travel
Mm-hmm.
far for water. So um,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to get in here, and it's a lot of it's trial and error. There's plenty of times where I got into spots where I'm like, this is going to be an amazing spot, and I busted deer on the way in. Well, lesson learned. You
Yeah.
know, there's
Right.
no shortcuts in a lot of these situations, unfortunately. You got to learn by your mistakes.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Dead on Display Euro mounting system, by far the best Euro mounting hanger on the market. I have all my mounts on them, including an elk skull, and it holds that thing to the wall solid. I do also like the angle bracket for the whitetails. It gives them a real nice look, and it helps preserve one of your memories for a lifetime. So check them out, deadondisplay.com. You can find them on Instagram as well. So the one thing that you mentioned about you find the sign, you kind of slow down and you start picking it apart and being like, who else is going to be hunting this? So there's definitely like, PA, we have this law that you're supposed to take your tree stands out 2 weeks after the last day of muzzleloader, the late season. Nobody does that, right? There's stands everywhere.
Very
So
few.
that's like that's like a pretty established, like if there's a stand there, it doesn't mean don't hunt it, but you might have to monitor it. Same with cameras, or maybe you find some scattered litter or something like that. Is there anything more, like, let's say you move into an area and you're like, all right, I don't see any cameras, I don't see any stands, to me this looks good, but you kind of met your match where somebody else just like you who's a good hunter is in that area, and you're kind of like, all right, now I either have to adjust and get around him or kind of work off that pressure. Is there something you're doing to find that out? Is that by all in-season observation?
That's in-season observation. You're going to find out real quick when the pressure moves in on your area. Even if you don't see it there, you're going to see the movement die off. When you get an area with zero pressure, you're going to see deer moving naturally. And when pressure starts creeping in, you're going to see them they're going to change their times. They're going to be moving. They're going to be moving more, cautiously. You're going to see, they're stopping and looking, stopping and looking. It's, constantly winning. They're doing that already, but you're going to see it more at a higher interval. Let's put it that way. I've noticed that over the years. Last year, pressure wise, I was in one of my favorite spots, and I want to say is it the first or second week of November. I was hunting there, and on my trail camera, on one of my cell cameras, it lit up. I was actually at home during that day because I was working, and my trail camera lit up. And I had a guy, walking through my scrapes, and it was, during the day, during the rut, middle of the week, and it was raining that day. And went up probably about 3 or 4 days later, when waiting for the perfect wind and everything to hunt that. Well, the best wind to hunt it. And I saw he had a cell camera 20 yards from the stand that I was hunting. And I hunted that morning, had a great hunt, nearly sealed the deal on the deer. And I went over in front of the camera, and I had a sign that I wrote on a piece of paper. I wrote, "You have your cell camera 20 yards from my stand and 30 yards from my cell cams." I said, "Could you please respect my hard work and dedication?" I came back up the following week, it was gone. So, I could have been, the jealous guy or feel like he's encroaching on my territory, but I just asked him, he has a right to be there. It's public land. If he kept it there, so be it. Then I would just adjust. I had several other spots on that ridge I could have hunted, but that was the hot spot at that time and place. So I just did that kind thing. It was a cell camera. I knew he'd get the alert, and I just did that. I could have crushed his camera. I could have stole it. I could have threw it away in the woods. But, we're all trying to do the same thing together, enjoy the outdoors. So I like to be respectful first. And if the person shows respect back to me, hey, if I see that guy out in the woods or whatnot, I'll tip my cap. I'll shoot the shit with him. I'll even give him a few pointers about the area. So,
yeah, absolutely. It's always good to kind of network with people that are in your area, because it can help to spread that pressure out so everybody can get to enjoy seeing deer moving naturally or whatever it happens to be. So you're in the woods today.
Yep.
What are you looking for now that it's July?
So now that it's July, honestly, I'm not looking for any type of new information. I found these spots, pinned them on my Onyx, and I just come back and I set up scrapes. I put up, the licking branches. I tie a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of yarn around it, put the scent that I use on it, and
Mm.
yeah, and then I just put a camera on and back out. Honestly, I don't, at this point in time, in the heat of the summer and everything else, I don't spend much time just going to.
Yeah.
I just go to my spots that I scouted in the spring and set cameras. That's it. I try to get it done
Yeah.
before the heat gets in, before the bugs get bad, because nobody likes those. And
Yeah. It is pretty
I
awful.
don't necessarily find too much credible information during the summer. That's just me personally. I know so many people are probably going to be screaming, "You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong." But I have my methods. They've been working for me. It is what it is.
No, I think you're kind of onto something. Summer in Pennsylvania is a little bit different when you're in the big woods and kind of like in hilly or mountain terrain, Like you said, everything's kind of bedding cover. So how do you that I guess that's something too. How do you kind of um when you're thinking about the upcoming season, are you looking for any shift in how they're bedding in that area, like so you can avoid it on your way in?
Yeah, again, it's years of trial and error. You learn where deer prefer to bed just by walking in, and you bump them. So
Yeah.
over the years, I've done it. I've noticed where deer prefer to bed. So sometimes I have to do a big giant J hook into it to get into an area. I have to completely walk around
Right.
that spot, go down a bench, and then come back up to the bench just below. So it's all
Mm-hmm.
what you're willing to put into it. Uh, Trying to think as far as noticing shifting in bedding. Summertime, you see where they tend to bed for the green browse and everything else because acorns haven't fallen yet or anything. And
Right.
I notice what they're eating on. That's like I said, when you find a good area, you slow down. You start noticing things. Not only are you hunting for people to see if the area is worth it, but you're looking for what they're browsing on. You're looking for where they're eating off the edges of the greenbrier, any type of
Mm-hmm.
green feed, witch hazel that they're feeding on. You're really like
Mm-hmm.
blowing things down under a microscope, and
Mm-hmm.
it essentially, you know, you're picking apart a crime scene almost. So
Right.
big tracks. That's another big thing to find to help narrow things down. I forgot to mention that earlier. Me, as well as I do around this area, you have tons of pole lines, tons of old coal silt roads, and everything else like that. You find a really big set of tracks. Chances are that's a mature deer, and it's going to be a buck more
Mm-hmm.
than likely. And what you
Yeah.
do is just you find the direction that those tracks are going. You work your way that way until you start getting into deep cover and you start finding that sign. Then once you find all
Mm-hmm.
that sign and information you need, you mark it. Then you take that set of tracks that right where you found it and you work it back the opposite way where it was coming from. And then you
Mm-hmm.
find the sign, you find the information, and then you put together the puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. So if you were to give somebody one piece of advice about when to start their season in a mountain, would you tell them like, hey, yeah, hunt the early season, or would you tell them, hey, find a place where you can kill some does and focus on your like your buck making sign kind of a little bit later in the season, towards the end of October, early November?
If you're hunting the mountains and trying to phrase this properly, so it depends on what your goal is, to be honest. If your goal is to get deer in the freezer, sure,
Mm-hmm.
go to where you're looking for does. Go look for areas that are going to be dropping acorns first. Look for them white oaks and look for tons of deer shit. Plain and simple. If you find loads and
Mm-hmm.
loads of deer shit, you're gonna find deer. They're spending time there. That's what that tells you. That's what it tells you they're spending a lot of time there. So if your goal is to shoot does right off the
Yep.
bat, go for that. You
Yep.
know, and
Yep.
then focus on the buck sign later. One thing I have found out about these coal region mountains and coal hills and all reclaimed coal mines and stuff because of how thick it is. This works for bucks. Find groups of does and just monitor them throughout the season. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you could take one if you want, but
Yeah.
that's up to you. Monitor the doe groups because eventually somebody's going to come by to check them. So
Yep.
if you're having
Yep.
trouble
Agreed.
establishing a bedding to feeding pattern, which is extremely tough, if not impossible, in these spots like this. Just locate a group of does and monitor them. Find them. They're your live bait. Essentially when rut time comes. So right around the 20th of October, you have that doe group located. You start seeing scrapes pop up. Start putting a little tarsal gland out. See who comes strolling by.
Yep. I agree with that full-heartedly. Dude, it's been awesome having you on. It's good kind of catching up, talking to you in person a little bit. That's a lot of fun. Where can people find you at, buddy?
Find me on Facebook or Instagram. We're at Anthracite Anthratics. Love us, hate us. We speak the truth.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, dude. Check them out and the links in the show notes. Thanks for listening to Whitetail Brief this week.